Well, hello. Welcome to another edition of Broke Down Sessions with the Nashvillains. We have a real treat for you guys. We have a Hall of Fame songwriter, composer, and done songs for movies and TV and
country artists, pop artists.
Right, Anne Murray, George Strait, Eddie Rabbitt, Kenny Rogers,
Whitney Houston.
Yeah, lived a long time in Los Angeles and recently transplanted.
All around nice guy.
An all around nice guy. Recently transplanted to here in Nashville, Tennessee. So Steve Dorff, welcome and thank you for being here.
And
Really
2018 inductee into the Songwriter Hall of Fame.
Hall of Fame songwriter, right? Yeah, which has got to be nice. What was that like for you? I mean, after career
man, that's the end of the rainbow for
yeah, right.
A pot of gold at the end of the rainbow for someone like me who was not an artist.
Yeah.
Who basically, for me, it's all about writing a song that someone else will record, because when you hear me sing, as you know, you know very quickly why you never heard me on the radio. So to be inducted with in New York with the likes of Elton John and Bernie Taupin and McCartney and Lennon and the Gershwins and
when you put it that way,
awesome.
Bacharach and David, it's like I'm still pinching myself and I was inducted with John Mellencamp and Cat Stevens. And,
wow.
Just incredible.
So where do you have that placed in your home? Where is it?
I have it
just
in
to
a
be
very special place on a small piano in my living room.
Oh, okay.
And,
it's not in the bathroom or anything.
No.
Some people do that.
Some people do that. Yeah. Oh, it's in a shelf high above in my garage or
flashing neon sign over the front door.
That's the and coincidentally, it's not the biggest of the awards I've gotten.
Right.
But it means the most.
Yeah.
I bet.
Right.
So you've been nominated for 3 Grammys,
Mm-hmm.
and you've had multiple nominations for Emmys, like what 14?
6 Emmys.
6 Emmys, okay. And then 14 BMI Awards.
42
BMI Awards, wow.
Yeah, get that
Just
right.
a little off.
Dyslexia.
Just a little
Yeah,
Flip the
get that
numbers
right.
around. Yeah. But that's amazing. So out of all the stuff that you've written, what would you say was...
Don't ask me what my favorite is. Because I can't remember.
How about this?
Right.
What was the most challenging to write?
Probably songs that no one's ever heard, because the most personal songs to me are the ones that are my personal favorites, that I consider maybe my best work as a piece of
Art. Yeah. Right.
but not necessarily the most commercial. And so challenging is the challenge there is to make it as perfect as I can get it.
Sure.
And whereas pop songs or country songs or R&B songs, you're just trying to write great songs and hoping that someone comes along and salutes and records it.
How often are you writing directly for one artist in mind, or are you just writing and just hoping that artist...
Never have.
Yeah.
Never have. I just write and and then say a prayer that someone invariably when I finished a song and thought this would be really good for so and so, I never get that artist. I think 99% of the time it's been a complete surprise.
But it helps to have an artist's voice in mind as you write it. Do you do that, or do you just rely on your own? This is how I feel.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when we write, we're like, well, who do we hear this for? And so
I've never done that.
Yeah.
The only time I've done that is when I've been asked to write a song for a specific artist. When they personally call me and say, I want a song about this. Can you do that?
Right.
And the latest case of that was for Barbara Streisand's last album.
Yeah.
I was asked to write a specific song.
Meaning like a specific theme or a
lyric idea and that she had, and something that was important to her.
So you got tossed a lyric from Barbra Streisand and say, hey, go write something
an
about
idea,
An idea,
a
okay.
title,
it? A title, right.
That happens.
That'd be pretty cool.
That happens every
So you
day.
started talking about the lyric idea and everything like that. And
Yeah,
obviously musical,
Marty
especially.
Panzer and I ended up writing the
Awesome.
song, and Barbara recorded it. It's on the Walls album, and I just finished a duet that will be on her next album, which is a duet with Willie Nelson. And
That's going to be awesome.
that's kind of
That's
fun.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had the pleasure of hearing that the other day. It's amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
It's amazing.
I want to hear a little bit of your background. I want to hear how you got started, and you told me earlier you were born in the New York area, and specifically
New York City.
in Manhattan? Oh.
No, Queens. New
Queens,
York.
okay.
Whereabouts in Queens?
Fresh Meadows, Forest
Oh.
Hills.
Okay.
Born and raised there, and
So when did you start music, playing piano and stuff? I mean, how did you know
I
that
think
you...
when I was about 3, my mother tells me, I was plunking around. My sister, who was 9 or 10 years older than I was, would take piano lessons and practice hour after hour and play the same song over and over. And I would climb up on the piano bench and play it better than she could.
Just by ear, you were listening to it, and you're like, okay, I think this is...
After she tried breaking all my fingers and chasing me around the house.
Right.
Was there truly a sibling rivalry like that? No. Okay.
Yeah, I never took a lesson.
So you weren't formally trained?
No,
as a-
no.
Huh.
School of hard knocks.
One of the most interesting things about you, to me, is not only are you a songwriter, but you are a composer. And that's something that it seems a lot of writers can't compose, or a lot of composers can't write. And you seem to be living both worlds.
It's a different set of musical muscles.
Yeah. Yeah.
Composing, for me, is really what I did first. From the time I was a little kid, if I got in my mom's car and she turned on the windshield wipers because it was raining, I would hear a little symphony going on in my head.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome.
Or if I was at a little league game and a friend of mine would hit a home run, or the crowds would be cheering and I would be musicalizing the thing. So underscoring whatever I did in life was just was like breathing.
Yeah.
Well, how did that come out in your adolescence as far as, I mean, you hear a symphony in your head, how do you manifest that in your, as an 8-year-old, as a 10-year-old? What would you just try to play it on piano?
No,
or
I couldn't play it.
you couldn't play it, yeah.
Are you writing it down or recording it?
No.
So what was your
You were
first-
singing,
Write it down.
singing along, singing the score, and like I remember a
It's hard
story
to
you.
explain.
Yeah.
What was your first opportunity to orchestrate something, I guess would be the next question.
When I was about 18 years old,
Okay.
I had written a song, and the guy producing the demo asked me if I could do a string arrangement to it.
Oh,
And I
okay.
said, well, yeah, because for me, when I write a song, I'm hearing the whole record. In my
Anyway,
head.
right.
Yeah.
And so I went home and said, oh shit, how am I going to do this?
Right, because you didn't know necessarily how to write theory down.
Right, but I got a bunch of books.
You
from
had
the
to learn
library
real quick,
and,
yeah.
And plunked it out.
So that first thing, you wrote out the music as
I was-
best you could,
yeah.
and did you
And it was
get
terrible. It was horrible.
Did
and-
you
and I-
get an orchestra to do it?
We had a string section. It was only about 8.
How
8
nervous
pieces.
were you
Oh,
putting
I was- yeah.
music in front of?
And then when I heard it, what I
Yeah.
had written, it
Yeah.
was just god awful. And so I ended up going out and singing the parts
Okay.
to the
Yeah.
players.
Wow. So
And-
they got real patient with you. He didn't say, "All right, well, this is
Yeah.
terrible. Let's actually get somebody that knows what
Right.
they're doing."
So I fixed it.
Well, that's
and
nice.
and it still came out terrible, but I learned a lot. I learned, I think, more from that.
Yeah.
In fact, in a lot of the things I was asked to do early on, I learned more from hearing what I was doing wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Than knowing what I was doing right. And then, of course, I studied just listening to the great arrangers and orchestrators that I worshipped as a kid growing up, and I just listened to what they did.
Right.
And I see the I have this thing called synesthesia, And it's kind of when my good friend who is a shrink, we were having dinner one night, and I told him, I said, I've always, from the time I was a little kid, maybe even when I was in the crib, when music is playing, I close my eyes and I see colors. And the colors are kind of like, you know what a lava lamp is?
Sure.
You know, the plasma bubbles?
Yeah.
That's how I see,
Yeah.
that's how I see music. And I still do.
Yeah.
And so what I think that translated for me into seeing the intervals. I could visualize what a C to an F is. I didn't know how to write it. I didn't know what a C was or an F was, but I knew the intervals. And so when I learned by reading books and listening to and reading scores of composers, I learned notation.
But even, you're obviously a very visual learner, because you're even doing that. You're doing the C to an F,
Yeah, right,
right?
right.
Very interesting. Yeah, that's really
The
cool.
fourth, well, I just call it a fourth.
Yeah.
And in any key, so.
Yeah.
And I hear it.
Yeah.
And people think I'm nuts, and my mother, I used to say to my mother, how did you hear that? And she'd say, hear what? And I'd go, because I just assumed everybody heard orchestras in their head, just like everybody sees color and
Right.
breathes and smells and tastes. I just assumed that was a sense that everybody had. So,
Right.
Yeah.
I think I heard Ray Charles say in an interview one time that he saw colors and things too when he was.
Yeah, it's
creating
my good friend who's a psychiatrist. We were having dinner one night with his wife and family, and I told him he was asking me about music and how I got into it, and I said, I have this thing where I just visualize what it is, and I hear it in my head, and I hear all the parts, and I hear the woodwinds, and I hear the cello, and I hear the brass, and he says, and when I mentioned colors, he said, "Oh, that's synesthesia." And I said, "Am I going to die?"
Yeah, right. Yeah. What's the prognosis there, Doc?
Yeah, and he said about 4% of the world's population experiences, and it's different. It's a crossbreeding of the senses. Some people can. It's not only music related. If some people drink coffee and all of a sudden they'll see spots, or they'll smell something and their skin will turn. It's just a crossbreeding of the senses.
Wow.
Is how it's been explained to me. So.
Well, one of the songs that we are going to do, perform with you, is Every Which Way But Loose. And
Right Turn, Clyde.
Yeah.
great Clint Eastwood film.
Every time I hear that
You had told me a story a long time ago how that kind of broke you into the movie business as a composer.
Yeah, it was my first opportunity. We were asked to write a song by the music supervisor at the 11th hour, because a very big artist had turned in a song and was going to do it for the movie, and Clint didn't like it and he threw it out. And apparently he called the music supervisor and said, I need a song. This movie is going into post-production in 2 weeks. And so I got a call and saying, hey, I need you to try to write a song called Every Which Way But Loose. And I said, what does that mean?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And,
Right.
And I called my good friend Milton Brown, who lived in Mobile, Alabama, who Milton and I had been writing together for years, and we wrote it over the phone. And I played it the next morning.
Before Zoom and email.
Yeah, before cell phones.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Like one of those phones.
Yeah,
you know?
rotary dial.
And I went in and played it for the producer the next morning, because there were no demos. I just played it at the piano.
Yeah.
And he called Eastwood's office, and we went over that afternoon to the soundstage over at Warner's lot in Burbank, and I played it for the man, and he just looked at me and said, play that again. I played it a second time.
This is Clint you're talking about?
Yeah. And he said, That's the song.
Yeah.
And then Eddie Rabbitt at the time was the hot up-and-coming guy in country music, and Clint wanted him to sing it. And
It's a great song. It's
That was the
one of my
number one,
favorites.
right?
that was my first number one.
First number one. Now, how did that break you into composing? Because you also scored the film.
Well, what happened was after we did the record, Clint's heard my arrangement, and he said, "Have you ever scored a movie?" And I said, "Have always wanted to." You know, if I had said no, which was the true answer, that would have been the end of it. And I
Right.
wouldn't be sitting here.
Right.
But my instinct was to say that's what I came to California to do, and so he said, okay. He said, call Don Harris, who was his music editor on all those movies, and I ended up doing 5 movies with Clint, and that was kind of the
Now, by this time, you were able to tabulate you're able to write out the music and
Right.
everything? Yeah, okay. Okay, because I was about to say, well, what are you going to do now?
Yeah.
Was Clint a producer on that movie? Was he involved in the inner workings of that movie? Or just as a star, he was able to say,
Clint makes every decision.
yeah.
Yeah. He produces everything, directs, stars.
Well, I know that now, and he has for a long time,
Yeah.
but this was back in what, mid-'70s?
Yeah, but he had the Dirty Harry movies.
Right, okay.
So-
This was post Dirty Harry.
Yeah, and
Okay,
in fact,
all right.
Warner's, when they saw that movie, hated it.
Really?
They thought because it wasn't a typical Clint Eastwood movie, they
Right.
said that this is going to be one of the. It was the first movie Clint's ever had that made $100 million
Wow.
at the box office. It was the biggest movie he ever had
Yeah.
at that point.
Yeah.
Wow.
So.
That's awesome. So you said you know how to notate at that point.
Oh, sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because I remember when I used to work for Steve a long time ago.
I was about to ask when that happened.
Yeah, and
I was doing a lot of TV.
you were doing a lot of TV, yeah. And I used to sit behind you, and you had a guy, an orchestrator, with you when you were
Yeah.
scoring films.
Well, I was
And-
doing 5. I had 5 shows on the
Yeah.
at the same time. I had Murphy Brown, Growing Pains,
Yeah.
Spencer for Hire, Major Dad, Murphy Brown. I said Murphy Brown. I was also over at Universal. I was doing Murder She Wrote. I was doing
Yeah.
Columbo. It was insane. I
Yeah.
barely, I'd prop myself up in the morning with a pot of coffee and go till.
And that business is
Right.
very quick. I mean, when you do something, it's got to be done
Oh, yeah.
quickly,
It's
right?
been on a treadmill that you can't get off.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, when I was there, you were doing Reba. And then we had also
Yeah.
had done Facts of Life reunion movie. I remember that.
Yeah.
But the thing I was going to bring up, which was so awesome to me, was you would sing a line, an orchestral line of an instrument, and the guy next to you would write it
Yeah.
note for note. And I was just like, wow, I've never seen anyone do that before. It was
Yeah,
such
well,
a cool.
at one point, I was so all the different shows were running together, and
Yeah.
so I needed a couple of guys that I'd sit down to do Spencer for Hire, which was detective, lots of car chases.
Uh-huh,
So my mindset would be into that. If I was doing Columbo or Murder She Wrote, it was a little more intricate, a little more orchestral, because we used back then we used 40, 50 players in a session.
Right.
I was doing 5 sessions a week.
Yeah.
It was insane.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I had guys that I would I'd do stuff and,
Yeah.
and say okay and do sketches.
Yeah.
I'd sketch. Give this to the oboe, give this to cello,
Yeah.
give this to first violins, give this to and then they'd do it, and I'd say, okay, go away, I gotta
Yeah.
do this now. So,
I just never forget that. You singing to this guy, just singing lines, and him just running out. I was like, what is going on here?
Well,
This is
did any
awesome.
of your
great.
assistants or co-collaborators at any point go, you know what, Steve, this melody you just played me is a lot like what we did over here. Did any of that cross?
no,
So you were able to really separate everything out.
Yeah, I had it. Yeah,
You had it compartmentalized in your mind.
Colors were going crazy.
Yeah, What was the color palette like? I mean, I'm sure.
Kaleidoscope going on.
It was pretty wild.
That's great.
Back then, yeah. So now it's just now I just write a couple of songs a month. And it's
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, just like Clint Eastwood, though, you were the person that kind of opened the door for me to get into TV. So that was, you were the first person. that
Oh,
opened
I
the door
see
for
where
me.
the train of thought. It's
Yeah,
always
no,
kind
it's-
of coming back to
it's
Brad.
not about me.
I see where that
But it's
where
true.
that
But it's
question's
true.
coming
I mean,
from.
but it's true. He was
Enough
my
about you.
mentor.
I know, I know.
Everybody's
I know.
got to have
Yeah.
a starting point.
Yeah.
Clint
Yeah.
gave me my big break.
Yeah.
People always say, "What's the big break?" And the truth is, I think in a career you have many big breaks.
Sure.
You have to. You can have one big break that maybe, just like you can have one hit record. Anybody can have a hit record
Right.
if they're lucky,
Right.
if they're at the right place at the right time, and if they have a half decent song.
Mm-hmm.
To have a career of 30 or 40 years, 4 or 5 decades,
Yeah.
you have to have a lot of big breaks.
Right.
Yeah.
And, which I've had.
Yeah.
Luck and talent put together.
Well,
right?
yeah, you have to be able to back it up.
Yeah.
When
Yeah, you gotta be
when
prepared.
It's
That's
where
it.
opportunity meets,
Preparedness.
meets,
or whatever.
yeah.
Well, speaking of the next big break that you might be alluding to is we're going to do a song that George Strait cut.
That's probably several breaks down the line.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, so
I
where?
thought you were going to say your next big break is performing with us. Right?
Yeah, well, that book
Hey,
hasn't been
You
written.
never know. You never know. I may produce a #1 record on you
Yeah,
guys.
yeah.
But you wrote a song, "Cross My Heart."
I Cross
I'll
My
Cross
Heart.
My Heart.
Yeah, Eric Cass and I wrote that for Boys to Men. And Boys to Men, we demoed up this cool R&B kind of groove to it, and they hated it.
So this was early '90s. This was late '80s.
late 80s.
Late
I
'80s.
think.
Okay.
Went back in about 6 months later with a girl named Susie Benson who had been doing a lot of demos for me, and I said, "Yeah, let me do a female version of this." And did a little piano vocal, and lo and behold, Bette Midler records it. And the record, to her credit, it wasn't the right fit between a voice and a piece of material. I always say what makes a hit is when the right voice sings the right song.
Yeah.
Right.
And Bette's a great artist. But
Very belty though.
yeah, it just wasn't the right.
Yeah.
And she knew it, and
Yeah.
she canned it. And of
Yeah.
course, when I found out,
But
it
they
wasn't-
did cut it.
They cut it.
Do you have a copy of
I
that?
sure do. And
Ah,
every once in a while, I play it. And,
They made the right decision.
Yeah, I love that. But
Yeah.
she made the right decision. And of course, I was devastated when they told me they were canning it,
yeah.
and went 3 years to songwriter therapy. But
Otherwise known as a bar.
Yeah.
but I played that song for everyone I knew for the next 8 years. And that's the other thing you get asked frequently is, well, I think people listen to a song on the radio and just assume, oh yeah, they probably did that 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I Cross My Heart took about 8 years before I got asked to do a movie called Pure Country that I was scoring, and Chris Kane, the director, called me one night and he said, I need a song for the end of this movie, and I can't find it. I've listened to over 500 songs that have been pitched to me. And I'd played this song for everyone, including my mother, who said, it's okay. It's not and so I said, well, let me take one more shot with this sucker. And I played it for Chris, and he said, that's the song. And we went to Nashville, and we flew to Nashville from Los Angeles, and I played it for George's people first. And
George Strait.
George Strait.
Yeah.
And it's nice, not one of your best. And we somehow got him to agree to, the producer of the film was a powerful guy, Jerry Weintraub, and he said, this is the song.
Yeah.
We went in and cut it, and George killed it, and it was the perfect marriage between the song and the...
Did it take you sitting down with George and playing it with him or at some point or anything like that?
Played it at the piano a few times, and as I recall, and then the band kind of filled in, and we organically made that record. And
this may be a question you don't know, but did Dean Dillon try to write a song for that record too? Because you know
sure he
he's
did.
yeah, I know, but I mean, was he there? I mean, Dean Dillon's so
I'm sure everyone
so
tried to
far
write
into
it,
that
yeah.
group. Was he there at all?
No, I
Oh,
don't
okay.
recall Dean.
I'm sorry, it's just
You know, the soundtrack.
non sequitur question.
The soundtrack was far and away the biggest record George has ever had. We sold 8 million.
Yeah.
You were also a
Yeah.
music supervisor on it too, right?
Well,
You were-
I did the score. I wrote all the music for
Yeah.
the film, and I wrote the two big number ones, Heartland and.
Heartland was great too. Yeah.
I was gonna say you had multiple songs on there.
Yeah, I had Heartland and I Crossed My Heart, and then I wrote The Man in Love with You for his next album.
Good
Yeah.
song too.
It's a great song.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, George has sold, God, I mean, I Crossed My Heart must be on 20
Yeah.
million.
Yeah, it's one of the all-time
Yeah.
biggest. What did we say? CMT number 9 of
CMT
all-time
voted
love
it
songs.
the 9th greatest country love song ever written, which I think back and I go, well, what would Boyz II Men say?
But out of all the country love songs been written, that's pretty amazing. Honor,
yeah,
you know?
yeah, it's killer.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Well, not only are you a musician, a composer, a songwriter, you also are an author, right?
Well, yeah. I was,
And we have his book right here. Do you want to tell them about it?
That's my book. I started doing these one-man shows where I'd sit at the piano and tell stories behind the hits. And this woman came up to me after one of the shows. I was in Connecticut, and signing CDs in the lobby after. And she came over and she said, you don't sing worth a shit, but your stories are great. You should write a book.
Oh,
And I didn't know how to take that. I said, well, thank you. But it turns out she was a literary agent.
Oh.
And she said, if
Nice.
I get you a book deal, will you write the book? And I said, come on, I have enough problems trying to write a 3.5-minute song. How am I
Right.
going to write a book? She
Right.
said, just tell your stories. And about 6 months later, she sent me an email and she said, start writing. We got a deal. And,
Wow.
Wow.
and so I...
So what was the process of trying to extrapolate?
I just started to think about all the success and all the failure,
Yeah.
and I started sketching out little chapter ideas, and
Did you speak into did you
No.
audibly do it, or did you actually
now I
type it
sat
or
down
write
at
it?
the
Or
computer every night between like 10 and 1 in the morning after my kids went to sleep. I'd
Yeah.
sit there and I'd hone in on a story, like Every Which Way But Loose, and I'd do everything I remembered,
Right.
and I'd call some of the guys that played on it, or Larry Herbstreit, my orchestrator, who was like my right hand, and I'd call Larry and I'd go, who do you remember who played drums on the Ringo thing we did for Curly Sue? I did this movie Curly Sue, and Ringo did the Untitled song, and I couldn't remember who played on it. And the publisher wanted details. We want to know what Streisand was wearing when she sang that song. We
Right.
want to know,
Any fun, relatable?
Yeah, right, inside details.
We gotta have some angst here. We want to know about your divorces. We want to know about.
Right.
And so that was the second. And the book took about 11, 12. It took about a year to write it, and it was really one of the most gratifying experiences.
I bet.
I've ever
awesome.
had.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, being from New York, living in Los Angeles, how did you become so entrenched in country music?
Well, I didn't see a tree until I was 14, so I couldn't spell country. I think, I've been asked that a million times, I think it's the artists who record your songs, in no matter what genre, make that song what it is.
Yeah.
I've had the same song recorded by Whitney Houston and Anne Murray.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
Anne's,
great song's a great
Anne's
song.
version, yeah, a great song's a great song, and a great record's a great record. And, Whitney Houston was not going to be played on country music, and Anne Murray was not going to be played on mainstream pop, well, but certainly not R&B.
Right.
And same song, and then a guy named Roy Head, who I don't know, did a country version, a real country version of the same song. And
But what made you even pitch it country? I'm curious about that. Like
I
what-
didn't. Anne
Just-
Murray was a big pop artist at the time.
Oh, right, yeah.
And
And there was a lot of crossover that time, right? Because you had a lot of crossover hits with Anne Murray and Kenny Rogers and just all different artists like that.
yeah, but I did a lot of, I did Greg Lake. A lot of people don't know. I did, from Emerson, Lake and
Yeah.
Palmer. I did Smokey Robinson.
Yeah.
Worked with Dusty Springfield, who I idolized.
Yeah.
I kind of came up in that era in Los Angeles. Melissa Manchester, Kim Carnes, so many artists that. Sugarloaf, I don't know if you remember that band. Did
Is that Green Eyed Lady? Is that their?
that was their huge hit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a hit with them. Just I got to do so much stuff because I was playing sessions and
Yeah.
it was a great time to kind of be in all genres.
Yeah.
But the country thing really happened because Snuff Garrett, who was my publisher at the time,
Yep.
and big producer, started doing a lot of country artists like Ray Price and Porter Wagner and Dottie West, and I would arrange those sessions. And then when we did Any Which Way You Can, which was the sequel to
It was with
Loose,
Liz. Yep.
we found David Frizzell and Shelley West.
Yeah.
And we cut a song called You're the Reason God Made Oklahoma.
Yeah,
And
I remember that growing up.
And that was a monster hit for
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
They were CMA Duo of the Year 3 years in a row, and I ended up producing all of their records.
Wow.
And
Oh, that's
so,
great.
So kind of what you're saying, and to me, is Every Which Way But Loose kind of led you to.
it really did.
Kind of
And
opened
then,
a lot of doors.
and then Pure
Yeah.
Country. The only reason I got Pure Country was because I had done the Eastwood movies.
Right.
Because there were some other people that were up for that gig. There's always, in any movie or any TV show, there are literally 50 to 60 candidates for who's going to do the music.
Right.
And that helped me with Reba. I got a call from Narvel and Reba when she was doing the pilot, saying, "We don't know anybody that knows TV and country music. You want to do the music?"
Yeah,
I
it's
said,
right here.
"Sure,
Yeah,
let's do it."
exactly. Yeah, you,
So
yeah.
Well, Steve, thank
was a
you
great score.
so much for doing this with us.
Oh,
we're gonna
was a blast.
set up to do those songs, but we really appreciate you coming and hanging with the Nashvillains in this
Yeah.
broke down session. I want to plug this book one more time before we leave. It's
Thank
called
you.
"I Wrote That One Too," and
check it out on Amazon. And,
yeah, anywhere you buy books, I
Amazon
assume.
or the best place, and I'll sign them is on my website, stevedorff.com.
Well, Steve, thanks again, guys.
you,
Thanks
guys.
for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. This is
And,
a big deal for me, especially to have you here.
Yeah,
and it's,
thank you.
Yeah, it's,
Thank
Check us
it's
out
awesome.
at NashvillainsBand.com or on Facebook with the same credentials. Anyway, you guys take it easy. Thanks again.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.